Hello, everyone. Lawrence Fleming here again. Well, I understand the rapture is this week. That's what they say. I know we don't know the day, but if God's going to have one, this would be a good week. Because a few of the watchers out there have determined that the Jewish calendar is off by a month. So all the holidays that we just went through, they're still ahead of us. The Feast of Trumpets starts this week, Thursday and Friday, followed by the remaining holidays. So is that going to be the time for the rapture? The last trump? Well, I think it might be. It's going to match the timing. So stay with me and I'll tell you what I think. You know, if you're a Christian during this time, you've got to be excited. I'm excited that we're even talking about the rapture. We know it's coming. We just don't know for sure when. But in order to match the Revelation 12 sign, it has to be pretty soon. And if you're not a Christian, stay with me, because you shouldn't be at all excited about the second coming if you don't know about the first coming. If you like this video, click like. You want to hear more, subscribe to this channel. And of course, hit the bell icon and you know when I release a new video. If you do those things, it really does help YouTube know how to place this. I can reach more people that way. And as usual, I also don't ask for donations. God takes care of me very well. But I do ask for your prayers, for me personally and for this ministry. So let's go ahead and get started. I know that people are saying that we could have the rapture this week, and I hope they're right. I pray they're right. I pray that the timing is right for God to do what he needs to do. But I don't want it to come before he's ready. So if it's on his timing, I pray that it's right. And to be safe, I'm going to wear my money belt this week just in case. No, don't go out and sell your car. You can't take the money with you either. Okay, I think it's possible that it could be this week, but if not, I still want everybody to know what's coming. We have some major things that are on the edge of collapse, on the edge of really hitting the Revelation timeline. So I want to talk about a few of them tonight. If you haven't noticed already, and I have personal sightings for this, I've seen empty shelves. There are some shortages out there. Why is that? Well, there's a number of reasons, and we can't blame it all on COVID. We can't blame it all on the government, but everybody has a little piece of it. If you open up a shipping map that shows the ships that are out there in the ocean or on anchor outside of ports waiting to come in, there's a lot of them. They can't come in because there's nowhere to go. There's no place to unload because there's so many empty containers there waiting to be loaded back up with goods and put back on ships. So there's no way to come in. There are shortages across the human board too. We don't have enough truckers because of various reasons, because some of them are sick. Some of them have laws saying they have to be double, can't say the word, but getting that little medical thing in your arm. There are varying reasons. Same thing with truckers. All these people are part of the supply chain, and the supply chain right now has been disrupted because of all the things that have gone on in the last year. All of our companies out there have been working off of just-in-time production. In other words, they get the goods in to manufacture something, they make their widgets, and then they immediately ship them back out again. If you put something in the way of electronics or stock or cars or whatever it is, if you put them on a shelf or in a lot or whatever, or in a warehouse, they're not making money. In fact, the government discourages it because at the end of the year, many states have an inventory tax. that you've already paid tax on everything. You haven't made any money off of it, but the government's going to charge you for being stored up ahead. So they deliberately make sure that our supply chain is vulnerable. And we've had other things that have come in. We've had some major storms that have disrupted things too. Earthquakes in the north, and the tornadoes in the south, and the hurricanes all along the eastern board. Mother Nature, which is still God. Mother Nature has been raising havoc. Is it climate change? Well, if you say that the earth has cyclical times where we've had ice ages in the past, we've had volcanic activity in the past, things change. And that's the one thing about earth that is unchangeable. Things change. Okay, so we've talked about the supply chain. That's the problem. What about money? The government is still spending like a drunken sailor. And we know what they can spend like, only they're not the ones cussing, we are, because we're telling them what we think and they're ignoring us. Okay, so we have a imminent money collapse where our money is going to be devalued. It's called inflation, and it can lead to anything from recession to depression. If nobody wants our money, what are we going to do? How are we going to buy things? In biblical times coming up, we're told that it's going to take a day's wage to buy a loaf of bread. Well, we're not there yet, but I can see it happening. So the money's in a problem. Our shipping and everything else is in a problem. What about travel? We're still got some restrictions on travel. If you don't have that card that talks about that medical procedure, some places you can't go. I follow some people on YouTube that have different size boats or yachts, or families that sold their homes and moved on to those to see the world. Well, they can't see a whole lot of it because they can't travel between port to port. A lot of ports are closed. And if you do get there, you may not have the supplies that you expect to do your repairs on your ship. So there's some travel restrictions. Okay, we'll say you want to own a home. The price of homes in many areas, especially in the Southeast, are exponentially going up. It's almost a straight line graph if you want to look at it. People can't afford that. Now, the people moving in that can afford it are people moving from California or New York or Massachusetts, wherever else things are very expensive. So even our crazy prices here are still not up to what they are where they came from. But they're getting there. There's a housing bubble that's going to burst. Because if you don't have money, if you don't have buyers, you can charge, I can buy a home for $50,000 and charge $5 million for it. I'm never going to sell it, but I can charge what I want. Now, if I needed that money to do something else, I'd have to lower the price, wouldn't I? There goes the housing bubble. Most of the states are in some form of housing bubble. There are some that are already, have already reached their limit and are coming back down. I looked on a YouTube channel, there was like Boise, Idaho, and a couple of cities in the Carolinas, and actually some cities in California were already, there was a glutton of homes because people aren't buying. I think people aren't buying in California because they're leaving in droves, but that's different. There's still a housing bubble that's to hit. What else we got? Well, we know that the persecution of the church has increased. If you want to see what it's going to be like, look either in California, which is the socialist test bed for our country, or look to Canada. They just arrested that pastor that had opened his church against the government's wishes. And they locked him up for a little while. They let him out. He opened again. They locked him up again. That's what happens in the world when they don't like your religion. And that's coming. And since I think the rapture is imminent, what's going to be the biggest hit to the economies of the world? Remove all the Christians. We're not all church mice. There's a lot of well-to-do, I won't say wealthy because that has a bad connotation, but there are many well-to-do Christians who help out in the community and do things and spend their money. And that's all going to be gone. So a lot of things are going to hit. We wonder, how can that possibly be, inflation so bad? How can the world be so bad that they would recognize the Antichrist as Christ himself and welcome him? Well, you get rid of the Christians and you bring in something that's devastating or tragic. And we haven't even talked about the fact that there's, I think, 5 active spewing lava volcanoes right now around the world. And I think there's 2 or 3 more that are getting ready to, that are causing some rumbling, that they know their eruption is coming up. We've talked about asteroids coming by. We know there's one that's supposed to hit us in 30 years or something like that. But the scientists have admitted recently that there's no way that they can see everything that might come at us, especially if it comes at us from the sun. They can't look at it, they can't see it. You've got to be able to get reflection off of these things, not a shadow. They can only see them if they're coming from the other direction. So we don't know what's coming. What about earthquakes? You see how many above 6 earthquakes we have around the world right now? We just had a 7 down, I guess it's probably southeast of Australia. We had a 7 a couple of weeks ago up in the Aleutians, I think, of Alaska. We're getting some big earthquakes. The plates are shifting, but we're still seeing silence in some major areas. If you turn a wheel, all parts of the wheel have to turn. And when they don't turn, they're stuck, which means they're going to release with more energy. The entire West Coast is in a situation like that. There are parts of Europe and India and other areas where we haven't heard any earthquakes for a long time. The Mediterranean has had lots of earthquakes over history and don't have a lot right now. There's a lot getting ready to happen. I don't want to be here for this. I don't want to be one of those that prays that the mountains will fall on me to get me away and hide me from God. I'd rather be with God. Now we need to pray for those that are going to be left behind because they still need God. And early on, we're not going to see the big stuff early on. That's the second half of the tribulation time frame. But the small stuff, the birth pains are already happening now, but they're going to increase. God is basically saying, look up, and I will answer your prayers if you come to me. I will give you salvation if you ask for it, through Jesus, of course. He's still the same. He doesn't change, whether he takes us off the earth or not. God is still the same. And he will eventually get his own people, especially through the 144,000. He will reach out. They will build the temple. The Muslim countries that are, I guess, south of and a little bit around Israel right now would be willing to take down the Dome of the Rock and let them build. Saudi Arabia said it's not important to them, the Dome of the Rock. And historians will tell you that it was built deliberately to prevent the Jews from putting the temple up. It's the only reason it was built. It was remodeled back in the 1800s. It doesn't look like that in its original form. It's been damaged through a lot of different things, so they rebuilt it. It makes it look like it's been like that forever. No, and Muhammad didn't come around until, I guess, the 6th century, 632, I think he died, something like that. Nobody thought that they could ever go back. The Jews didn't think they could ever go back. It wasn't until a major event, major massacre of Jews in World War II, that the world said, okay, Let's let them have their land. They can at least have one place where nobody's going to persecute them. Well, it's worked for a little while, May 14th, 1948. But they weren't whole yet. It wasn't until the 67 war that they got Jerusalem back. But nobody ever thought about, we've got it back, why don't we build a temple? No, well, I guess it was probably following God's will, even though he might have been working for Satan. Said, we don't really care about the Temple Mount anymore. We're not going to have a temple. Let's put the Muslims in charge of it. That can't come from a sane mind. But it put them off because it wasn't their time. So that is God's will. So do we have a rapture coming up? I hope so. This week. I hope so. Don't bother packing. It's nothing you need to do. But reach out to your friends and loved ones. And you need to also pray for the world. Not that God will come in and have a revival, but God's will be done, whatever it is. We don't know what God wants on a day-to-day basis. He doesn't tell us. It's not up for us to know. So we pray that his will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Sound familiar? Okay. I hope we are going to be in the clouds this week. If we are, I'll see you there. If not, be thinking about taking care of yourself. Become a version of a prepper. Don't build a bomb shelter, but make sure you've got enough food for yourself and family. Keep your car full of gas. We don't know if that could run out at any time. Do all the things that you know are right. Don't go buying things that are frivolous right now, but buy things that you could use, that you need. So take care of yourself. Hope to see you in the skies this week. God bless.